I was wrong in doing what I did.
No, no! No! Are you listening?
Sean here, and let's talk about some things that we have definitely learned about Lorne. Some things that prove what he says is not true, and some things that are just inconsistent with who he really is. We know Lorne is lazy. He's been criticized by every catfish woman for his trailer and the state it's in. So he's trying to fix it up, he says. I don't know if we've seen any progress other than moving the bed around and maybe making it every once in a while. But I don't think he would have even done that had it not been for the catfish women and the 0.00, just go a billion zeros, and then a 1% chance they might go out there. And even if they did, it would be a drive-by just to look at the place and say, oh my God. They've given him something to work towards, something to keep him from thinking about his everyday life, something to get him focused on anything, everything that could possibly take away from what he needs to be doing. Well, those loans, I had to fix up the trailer, because you was coming out here, and now you're not coming out here, and you're the reason I'm in debt. I can just hear the whole thing right now. He's the guy whose place is trashed until somebody's coming over, and then he scrambles to clean it. And I'm sure if a catfish woman was there for long enough, it would just go back to being trashed again. And he would just say, well, you didn't seem to care, so, I don't care. It ain't that messy. The food would go from what the family wanted. Well, when I say family, it's him, the catfish who was stupid enough to go out there, which is none of them, and his dog probably. He would probably have a dog. He might let the woman that moved there have a pet, as long as she took care of it, but he would still claim it as his dog. I love my dog. Sorry. What a geek. I know he's a virgin, and I'll tell you how I know. His entire life, he has been nothing but a parrot, regurgitating, resuscitating. That didn't even fit. You know what? It does. Resuscitating old sayings he's heard from other people and using them as his own. I don't think he ever had sex with whatever woman he said he did. I can't even remember her name because it was a lie and I just blocked it out. The one he said he couldn't even feel anything when he was in there. Come on, man. Guys sit around and they bullshit. They talk about a bunch of crap. I'm pretty sure Roy or one of his friends or maybe even Tony said something like, it was like, or it would be like throwing a hot dog down a hallway and all of that other stuff. I think the woman had kids, but even if she didn't, let's just say they knew she had sex with people, a lot of people, or something like that. And if she had kids, Lorne would assume it would be like throwing a hot dog down a hallway because he does not know that vaginas stretch. He has no idea because he's dumb. He's never been inside one. He's never even touched one. I still wonder if he considers coming out of his mom's as hot, sexy action. See, I've been inside a vagina before. That's a little ridiculous, I know. I'm just making a point. But I don't think he's ever had sex. Because you know what? He mentioned Paula. He mentions her a lot, and they never had sex. Imagine if he actually had sex with someone. That would be his number one. Well, we had sex. I thought we had a real connection there. But, she did me wrong. Could have used her like crazy. That would have gotten him more sympathy, at least in his head. But he forgot about it because it didn't happen. Well, there was a connection there, between me and Paula. Well, if you would have had sex in real life, you would have said, yeah, we had a connection. We were having sex and everything. She loved it. It was so amazing. She was flopping around like a fish. But we know he has never had it. It's just another part of that false narrative, those lies, the prison he has created, he can't break out of, because, again, if he faces them, his whole world crumbles. He knows what he has done is going to prevent him from ever having sex. He's never going to have a first time. He can almost have a first time, which I think to him, it might even be better for him, because we know he can't perform. We've talked about it as literally standing up on its own. He was so proud that he had a full erection. Most of us, if a good-looking woman is around and we're interacting, if the wind blows, we're going to get an erection. Lorne, I think he just has to beat it, come on, please, just wake up. And then he finally achieves it. It will stop him from having to ever figure out whether or not he could perform with a woman, and I think he knows he can't. So he can always say, well, I've been in love a lot, but it's always been these catfish women, these women who are lying to me. That way he can tell himself, that's why I haven't had sex. That's why I never went out and tried to get a real woman. I love it when Ramona's telling him, I don't like you, go find a real woman, please, just go get somebody in your area you can terrorize. I don't want a real woman, I want you. Okay, Lorne, you don't want a real woman. That explains everything. I want to have sex with the telephone. Just that whole scenario with Casey, I think it was Casey, where he's talking about, I'm so ready to, F you. That's like the first time he's ever had a willing partner, at least in his eyes. She was willing to do whatever he wanted. That's why he referred to it as banging and not just masturbating over the phone. He has no idea how relationships work, and he has no idea when sex is initiated, because he was with Ramona 9 months. 9 fucking months. He was with Ramona for 9 months, and nothing ever happened. As a matter of fact, she didn't even show any interest in it. And Lorne, man, it's like he didn't even understand that there should have been some kind of interest in sex, or wanting Lorne to see what she looked like naked. I mean, she saw what he did, unfortunately, because he sent those pictures. I can only imagine, because Ramona sounds like a nice woman, a woman that's got a future ahead of her, and she's doing this, proving a point. And I think at the beginning, maybe Ramona was like, I can't do this, and then hopefully someone said, look, what you're doing, you're exposing this asshole to the world so that no other woman has to take what you're dealing with. That would have been all I needed to hear if I was her. I would have just kept going, strung him along as much as possible, and put it out on the internet, and send that link to every corner of the world saying, whatever you do, do not go with this guy. Don't let his little bit of notoriety suck you in. You're not getting with the bad boy. You're getting with an asshole, and it's only going to be misery. Just to briefly touch on it, we know he's still a pedophile. We know he had real victims. We know it's who he is. It's in his nature. You cannot fix that. I don't care how much rehab, how many classes. The only thing you can do with those classes is try to show them that it's wrong. But the punishment is what does it usually. They don't want to go back to prison. I was teaching Taekwondo. I don't know if I've told this story. My ex was furious. Subway was right next door, and our guys would go over to Subway. I had 120 students, so the families would go over there. Some of my junior instructors would go over there. The place was packed, so they would just go over there. It probably provided them with a lot of income. One guy kept coming over, and I was like, wow, he's on break, wants to come over and watch us do some stuff, whatever it is. Maybe he's got some kids. I went out and talked to him, and I said, hey, man, you're welcome to join. You can have a month free uniform. Come on in, give it a try. You seem really interested. Oh, no, my days are past. My days are beyond me, whatever he said. And one of the parents, Lisa was her first name, she looked at him and she's like, I know him. Turns out the dude was a repeat sex offender, and he was coming to the window, because we had big glass windows. We always had gawkers. He was coming to the window, and he was watching the kids do Taekwondo. So he was instantly fired from Subway when they found out who he was, because he didn't put it on his resume, and he damn sure wouldn't have been allowed to be next to, over top a comic shop and next to a Taekwondo school with families and kids. You cannot fix them. You can only hope to contain them, or at least to subdue them somehow, put them in prison for the rest of their life before they can victimize other kids. These rapists, they get out and they reoffend again because it's their fix. These druggies, as I said, go to interventions, and if it's strong enough, they leave those interventions and they go and they try to get whatever fix they need. And they'll find somebody who will enable them. I think Lorne would find somebody who would enable him, who would get him in a situation where he could do what he wanted. I think he might find a like-minded person, and two of them together would be terrifying. Now, if Lorne never hears this, oh, this guy's great, you'll never have him. Yes, it will, Lorne. You got busted. And now you're claiming that a state-appointed therapist and all these people that just want you out of their hair have this conspiracy going on to make you look like a bad guy. You still think Xavier's real. We know that, and I'm getting into different territory here. You still think that NBC, because in his head, the reason he thinks this is because they are the only reason that he went to prison. They're the only reason. Xavier Von Erck, the boogeyman, living rent-free in his head in a penthouse, in a deluxe apartment in the sky high, living in a penthouse in his head. He cannot accept the fact that he did what he did, which is why he will always be a danger. And I wonder, if I was teaching Taekwondo next to where Lorne worked, and I had those 50 kids, no, it was 60 kids, 40 adults, and then we ended up with 120 at one point, don't even know the count, and then I was moved to Louisville to help start a new school, and thankfully we weren't next to a place that housed pedos. They are out there, just like Lorne, in your neighborhood. Some of them have weaseled their way into the schools because they haven't been caught. I mean, just look at some of the teachers we have now telling your 7-year-old kids, 6-year-old kids, 4-year-old kids, trying to ask them whether or not they feel like the opposite sex at 4 years old. They don't even know who they are. We have these creeps in our society, and they're going to remain there, and we can only hope that one day Lorne is fixed. Which, when I say fixed, I mean chemically castrated and completely changed. Do I think the old method of castrating sex offenders is a good idea? No, it's not constitutionally right. But I would understand if people thought that. Repeat offenders who have been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to have done what they did. Maybe, yes. Especially these rapists, but I don't think it would stop them. They would just become even creepier. You don't need to have sex to violate somebody. You can do it in other ways. And Lorne would find a way to do it, and he would still fantasize. We know he can't stand not getting what he wants, and he will do whatever he can, crying, screaming. He will do whatever he can to get them to call him back. His life is call me back, please. That's not a joke. That's what I legitimately will call this Netflix documentary if we do it. A working title will be Call Me Back, Please. And as a matter of fact, Call Me Back, Please. Lorne Armstrong versus the world. Or just something stupid, right? A working title. But I think Lorne's entire life is Call Me Back, Please, because without the phone, he's nothing. He's not going to speak to anyone. His best friend simply tolerated him, and he had to bribe them. And I think we learned that Lorne thought it was them. They were the bad people. They made him do it. So we've learned that Lorne thinks that everything bad he's ever done, he was made to do. Listening to him tell Casey that these catfish women were the problem, and listening to her ask him, so you knew she was a crackhead, Winnie. So you knew she was a crackhead. She was having sex with other guys, and all this stuff. And he's like, I know, it's stupid. But love, it does a bunch of things. Lorne, you've never had love, and that's why you tolerated it. Love is a two-way street, but we know it's not for Lorne. And we talked about this. Love is not a two-way street for Lorne. It's possible to love somebody and them not to love you back. I haven't experienced that in a long, long time. The one that got away will always be my first love. We've stayed in contact over the years, and I still love her, and I know she still loves me, but we're not together. And that's possible. You don't have to be together to love somebody. So I'm going to back up. We know Lorne, if he thinks he has a relationship, you have a relationship. And what makes him scary is, now I'm thinking to myself, what about these young women he thought he had a relationship with? And he thought they saw each other naked. I don't think that might have been the truth. I think maybe Lorne sent her naked pictures, and she said, oh, I can't do that. Don't send anymore. I might get in trouble. Because we know how Lorne thinks. He would hear, oh, she was going to send me naked pictures, but it was because she didn't want to get in trouble. Maybe that's why he said, I didn't want her to get in trouble with her parents. Maybe that was the truth. Maybe he thought that he was being noble, that that's how he handled these other real victims that he had, because they don't have to engage to be a victim. They don't have to reciprocate. He can just assault them with naked pictures over and over, these young girls. Once, if he made the mistake once, I told you I would understand. Maybe he had, if he was one of these other guys who had issues with his wife, his life was spiraling out of control, his daughter, his kids didn't like him, and the attention he was getting from this young girl or these young boys, that filled that void. They had two at once. They were receiving affection and someone younger liked them. I'm not saying it's right. Please don't use this video in one of your streams. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying psychologically I could understand that. It is terrible, and there should have been something else that they did, but I do get it. I've seen parents love other children more than their other kids. Talk about those kids more than their own kids, because they fight with their kids. Their kids tell them they hate them. You know, typical adolescent shit where they're arguing and they're trying to figure out where they stand. And look, Mom, I'm my own person. You need to back off. Like my daughter and my ex. I mean, I hear stories where they're butting heads. My daughter's now taller than my ex. She gets that from my side of the family, and I don't think that sits well. And I think my ex constantly feels like she has to remind her who the woman of the house is. I'm not saying my daughter bows up, but we know Lorne bows up on people. If you're young, that means he puffs his chest out. He's trying to be a tough guy. He bows up, trying to be a tough guy. Tries to flex on every male that comes into his life. Now it's all over the phone, or it's his brother. I'm telling you, I show up and I just sit there and stare at him and I say, Lorne, nothing you say is going to stop me from taking you down and embarrassing you. He might scream and he might yell, but once he figures out, because I've seen it, I was in the Marine Corps, man, there were lots of telephone tough guys there. Once he figures it out, that it's going to happen, here come the tears. I'm sorry, I was picked on all my life. He's going to start shaking, because I've seen it. There was a guy by the name of Hernandez that came over with a guy named Neil. Both of them non-commissioned officers like myself. I don't know what prompted it. I think because I got the award and they didn't. I don't know. But he got up in my face and he was screaming and yelling because he thought I wasn't going to do anything and risk my career. Well, it wasn't the first time, and Sergeant Lato had already given me the thumbs up. So I was preparing to punch him in the face. And when I said, we're not doing this here, let's go over there where nobody can see, instantly he got panicked. I saw it in his eyes, and he was like, no. Now, I've been in situations where I've been terrified, but I'm willing to take an ass kicking. I'm willing to, if I got myself in that situation, I'm willing to try to get myself out. Always try to talk. Lorne doesn't know how to use his words. Lorne is a telephone tough guy, and he thinks threats are the best way to express himself. I know he wasn't good in school. I know he didn't do well in those classes when he had to write or had to talk to people, and maybe, just maybe, that's why he turned to poetry, because it was the one place he felt safe. I don't know. His poetry's terrible, so fuck it. He doesn't know where he stands. We talked about it. He's never been in a fight in his adult life. I think as a kid he was in fights, and I think eventually he just did whatever he could to get out of this situation, hiding behind teachers, hiding behind his mom and Paul, hiding behind whoever he could find. And then with Roy, some guy that they know they're probably not going to try to kill each other, they're just going to get in a scrap. That's not too bad for him. Nobody else is going to see it. It's just him and Roy. He pushed Tony down the one time, which I'm certain Tony picked just so he could get Lorne out of there. That would be a good way to ban him from the house. I wouldn't put it past him. There are some crafty people out there. I've said it before, fighting sucks, and half of you guys could probably beat me into the ground. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm not, especially now that I'm getting older. When I was younger, I probably thought I was invincible. When I'm making a point, I know not to pick a fight with somebody. I know if we ever went to a Lorne convention and they were like, hey man, you have a chance to pick a fight with people, I'm not doing it because I don't necessarily want to find out how that I would get stomped into the ground. But Lorne is a telephone tough guy. I apologize if you're tired of me talking about fighting. It's been such a big part of my life. Especially, I told you I got bullied and beat the shit out of the bullies. I mean, fighting has been a big part of my life. And I've been around people who were legit tough guys and people like Lorne who were little scaredy cats. We know that when Lorne is angry, that's when he feels powerful. That's when he feels like he's invincible. And I just don't get how he thinks getting angry at a woman, it makes him feel strong. Maybe that's why he stays so angry. We talked about him being in the pocket. But I don't think he's ever been wanted. He doesn't know what it's like to feel wanted. He has no idea when somebody loves him or likes him. That's why, do you want to lose me? Because you're on the verge. He had no idea. He wasn't paying attention. He thought that as long as they were talking, it was a relationship. And we know he doesn't know what relationships are. It goes much deeper than that. He hasn't had any real familial relationships. His mom tolerates him. I'm sure at one point when he was much younger and maybe she felt true love for her son. I don't think she loves her son now. I think she's exhausted and she just doesn't want to deal with it. I'm talking about in the past couple of years. I mean, I know she's sick or was sick, so not that version. We're talking about just Mama Gwen in general. Lorne doesn't know what love is. He doesn't know what it's like to be powerful because he's always been powerless and he's powerless now. He has no clout, no pull. The only thing he's ever had is NBC. He's only had that, his little bit of notoriety. And again, we learned if you take that away, he's nothing. He already is nothing. We know he has no future. He has no money. He will never be married. He will never have children. He will miss out on all of the things in life that we might take for granted, that we love. So I don't feel sorry for him. Not in the slightest. I don't think anybody else does either. And I don't want him to have friends. I don't want people to have to deal with him. We know he's a stalker. And he's going to do whatever he can to get what he wants. And if you don't want to give it to him, he's going to keep going until he figures out a way to break you down until you just submit. Thankfully, no one has submitted. He found Kayla, who he thought was going to do that. He had those young girls before who he probably thought were going to do that. All of these women had addictions. They had a weakness in his eyes, so he thought he was going to do that. But fuck this angry pedo. I can't stand him. And I hope one day it just hits him like a ton of bricks. This is who I am, this is what I've done, and this is what I will always be. This is part 1. I love you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Hang on, I can't even catch my breath. Hang on.